Hi everyone, in this tutorial I'll show you how to create a register and login system in Codeigniter. The idea for this tutorial came from a tutorial from NetTuts, and it's called Codeigniter from Scratch Day 6, and this was done about 3 years ago by Jeffrey Way. And what I've done is I've updated the code to make it work in Codeigniter 2.1 or Codeigniter 2, and I made some CSS changes, jQuery changes, and I also added to the functionality of the whole system. So let's get started. So first I'll just give you a little tour of it. We have the login page here, and we have the username. When you click on that, it gets selected, and we have the password here. And I have one account so far, Anthony, and the password is password. We can log in here. And if we log in, it takes us to the members session. We get logged in, we create a session, and we can log out here and kill the session. If we don't have an account, we can create an account here. So if we don't fill out all of the fields here, just fill out one field and click create account. We're using Codeigniter's validation class to output all of the errors. So until people have filled out all the fields and they've met all of the validation rules, we will keep popping up all the problems right here for them until everything is right, and then it will create the account. So we can create an account here and put everything in like we're supposed to. Use password as the password, and everything should be good there. We'll create account, and right now the account's being created, and we get sent back to this login form, but now we've changed the message. Instead of please log in, it has this message, confirms for them their account has been created, and they can now log in. They can log in right there. And if we go to our database, and we can see the user has been created right there. So let me just give you a brief tour of the database. So we have a users table here, and if we look at the structure, we have an ID, integer, we have a username, varchar of 15, we have a password, first name, last name, email. Actually, I can see now that there's some validation I didn't do, so I'm only allowing 15 characters to be stored in the database, but I don't know if I set that in the rules, but that's another thing you could do in Codeigniter. You could say, the username should be a minimum of 4 characters and a maximum of 15 characters. All those things you can set inside Codeigniter very easily. We also have another table here, which is CI sessions. So we're going to use sessions in this tutorial, obviously. And there's 2 ways you can do it in Codeigniter, and one is using a database. So here the session is stored in the database, and you can see some of the sessions right there. And if we click on one here, actually that's not what I want. Well, there's no user data set for either of them. If I log in here, let's see, and let's go to the sessions, and here we can see this is my Anthony account. If I edit here, and we can see this is the user data right here. So there's different information here. We have I'm storing the username in the session here, and I'm also storing this is logged in, which is a boolean. Username's a string. So we can, by default, there'll be some data stored in here. We can also set our own user data, like I did right here. Before I forget, I just want to show you how to create this sessions table very easily. So we go to Codeigniter's documentation and table of contents, and then go to session class right here. And if we scroll down here, we'll see some SQL right here. So you just copy this SQL, and then you're going to go into your phpMyAdmin, or you can do it in the bash if you prefer to do that, and then you'll just paste that SQL in there, and that will create the table. So right here it says create table if not exists. Well, that already exists. We can try that. I don't think it's going to work, and yeah, that didn't work because it's already created. So that's how you can create that sessions table, the users table. Just create it, not very difficult. So the first thing we should do is we should configure our Codeigniter so this is all going to work. So I'm going to open up Aptana, and I have all my files right here. And first thing we're going to do is in Jeffrey's he wasn't using an htaccess file, so it was showing index.php in the URL, but I got rid of that. So basically with this text right here, we create a file in our root folder called .htaccess, and it's got this code in it right here. In this part, you'll put in the path, so wherever your application is stored, if you have it in a folder, then you'll put that folder here just like that. And I actually put this code on my website if you just want to download it. So anthonyvipon.com/ci_htaccess.txt, and you can just save that, and then you'll rename the file name to .htaccess and close that. So let's go back in here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in application, and we're going to open the config folder, and I'm going to open autoload.php, database.php, config.php, and routes.php. Inside autoload, we're going to load in the database and session libraries, so do that if you haven't already. The URL, we're going to use the URL in the form helper. Let's go to database.php. So here you're going to put in your database credentials, your username, and your password. And whatever you named your database, put that right here. Next, let's look at config.php. So here you should set the base URL. So wherever your application is, put that right there. And don't put a trailing slash here, or else your paths won't work later. Well, you can, but it will affect how you create URLs. So for example, when I'm creating my CSS, a link to it, I'm going to put this, and then I'm going to concatenate on the CSS file name. So just need to pay attention to that and just remember what it is. Here you're going to remove the index.php and just set this to an empty string. So with the htaccess file and this set to an empty string, you're not going to have index.php in the URL anymore. And let's see what else we do here. I believe there's something else here. Set an encryption key you can set this to anything you want. It's needed for sessions. And inside the sessions here, change says use database to true, and the table name don't need any change right here. That's everything for that. And finally, routes.php, just set the default controller for this to log in. You can close these now. And let's start off by just going to the main controller. So that's our login controller. So in Jeffrey ways, it was the older Codeigniter, so this was just controller, but with the current Codeigniter, this is CI underscore controller. And in our index function here, we're just loading in these three views. So let's open up these views and take a look at them. In our includes folder, we have footer and the header, and also login form. So let's start by looking at the header, because that's what's included first. And here, pretty basic HTML5 doc type, and here I'm using a web font here, so I have the Google's link to this font right here, Arbutus Slab, and then after that I'm linking my style sheet, and this style sheet is going to make use of this font. So if you're not familiar with web fonts, I'll just show you really quickly where to get them. So just do a search for web fonts, and it's really simple here. You just choose the font that you want, click quick use here, and if you scroll down, it's going to have the code to put on your website and also your CSS right there. So that's pretty dead simple. Let's go back to our code, and let's check out the footer. So in the footer, I'm linking to Google's copy of a recent jQuery, and after that I'm including my own JavaScript file, so echoing out the base URL, and then after that just simply my JS file home.js, and we're going to put our jQuery inside there. Let's look at our login form here. So in our login form, you'll notice when we first went here, it just says login please. But you remember when we registered, after someone registered successfully, they also get sent here. But at that time, this changed to something else, okay? So what happens was when I loaded that view, I passed it some data. But here it's not being passed any data. So we can, at first it's just checking if this variable is present or not. If it is, it's echoing out, that string we saw before, which was your account was created, you can log in now. But if that's not present, it just says login please. Okay. We're using our form helpers here, so form open, and we're posting to the validate credentials method of the login controller. And then here is a text input. So this is simply simply a text input. And then we have a password input right here. And you can find more information of all of these on the form helper page of Codeigniter's documentation. So with this password here, this first one is the name, and the second one is the value set to an empty string. And in the third one, we can just pass this, you can pass this as an array in here, or you can just write it in. So I'm creating two new attributes here, HTML5 placeholder set to password, and a class for password, and we're going to need both of these, and I'll show you why inside the CSS and jQuery files. And then we simply have a submit button here, and we have we have a link here to this this sign up, the sign up method of the login controller, and I'm going to show you the CSS for these. So you'll notice that these two things, they look the same. If we hover over them, they get a little bit darker. So let's just look at that CSS really quickly. With my CSS folder, open style.css, and you'll see here at the bottom, where are we now? Right, so input of a type of submit and form A, and they're all getting the same styles here. And also with the hover behavior, they're getting the same styles right there. So that's how we get those to look the same. I think before we get too much into the code, we can talk a little bit about the CSS and jQuery now that went into these forms. So let's just talk a little bit about the styles first. So let's go to the top here, and well, we're using the border radius here. We have our Moz and WebKit prefixes. I'm not sure if these are necessary anymore, but anyways, border radius, that's how it gets the round edges. And we have a text shadow on our header tag. So that's, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of white underneath these letters. It gives it a bit of a beveled look. So we have a text shadow there, and with the text and password inputs, we're including our web font right here. And if a person's browser doesn't support that, they're just going to get their default serif font right there as a backup font. These also have border radius and some padding. One interesting thing about these is you'll see that actually in Chrome, if this input becomes active, Chrome by default is going to put a yellow rectangle around this, and that's definitely not what we want in this design. So I turned that off by when the input with a type of text has a focus, or a password type of password has focus, outline we set to none. That removes the yellow outline that Chrome is going to put around it, and possibly some other browsers too. And actually what you might be thinking is, well, couldn't we just change this to another color? But the problem is that this has rounded edges, and if we change it to, we can change it to this blue color right here, but it's not going to have rounded edges. So it's not possible to put the rounded edges on the outline. It's just not supported by it. But the way that I got this outline, the rounded edges, to match that of the inputs rounded edges, is using this box shadow right here. So the box shadow was able to basically match that rounded edge, so that looks a lot better, I think. See if there's anything else interesting here. So like I said, the submit button and the formatting, we wanted them to have the same styles. So they've got some box shadow, also border radius, and when they hover, these just get a little bit darker, and we do that by putting the these are called, I think they're called pseudo selectors, but anyways, colon and then hover after them, and that gets a little bit darker right there. I don't think there's anything else interesting here. Let's talk about the jQuery for a second. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my JS folder here, and you can see we have jQuery included. Actually, I didn't need to do this because we linked to Google's copy. But let's open home.js and let's see some kind of functionality we have in here. So you'll notice that when someone clicks in here, it's all getting selected. So I can easily type in my username, and that is a lot more convenient than someone having to delete this. Now they don't have to delete it; they can just start typing, and that was done with. So we have we're selecting here. We're selecting any inputs with a type of text, and we're binding on the click method, and that has a function in here. So when someone clicks on it, it's going to run this function. And the first thing we're doing is we're getting the value, and we're storing that in this current input val variable, and then we're doing this select. So this select is what's making it like that. Now, even though it says click, we can test with tab, and if I tab back into it, it still gets selected. So whether they tab into it or whether they click it, that's still going to get selected like that. And the reason I did this, we store this value in here, right here, is when someone focus out, I check if the value is set to nothing, then we're going to put that back. So if somebody just deletes here, if they delete this and then they click away, it's going to put it back because it was stored in that value right here. I don't know why someone would do that, but it just makes it a little bit better with that. Let's go to the password one here. So actually, with the password one, it wasn't possible to do the same thing with value, because if this password here was the value, and we can look at the source, and you'll see that that's not a value. So with the password here, the value is set to nothing, but it has placeholder of password, and also a class of password, which I'll show you why we need that later. But so the problem is, if this value is password, we wouldn't be able to see this right now. That would all be starred out because it's a type of password. So what I did was we have a placeholder attribute, and the placeholder is set to password. Now by default, the placeholder will be gray. So I found out how to style this, and if we go to our CSS file, you'll see this right here. So this is how we change the color of the placeholder in different browsers. Okay, pretty simple. And let's go back to our jQuery. So inputs with a type of password, when they focus in, okay, so if the placeholder attribute doesn't equal undefined, so this is going to evaluate to true because in the beginning, by default, they have a placeholder. So this is going to be true. They're not undefined, they're defined. And then we are going to remove the placeholder. So when they focused in, we notice that there's a placeholder, and then we remove it. Okay, so that's how now it gets removed. Once the attribute is removed, that's all gone. Okay, but when they click away, we want to put it back. So if we go down here, inputs with a type of password that have a class of password, when they focus out, we are putting the attribute back, putting back the placeholder attribute, and we're giving it password. And we're doing the same thing down here, but this time we're doing confirm password. So I needed to create two different classes because we didn't want to put password in both of them. For some of them we wanted password, and some we wanted confirm password, so we needed two different rules right here. So we can close these now. I don't think we need the header and footer anymore either. Let's start with the register page. So let's go over here to create account. Just make this a bit smaller, and let's go to where this is. So it's the login controller and then the sign up method. So let's go over there, and if we scroll down here, sign up. So we're loading in these things. Let's open up this sign up form right here, sign up form. So that's all wrapped in a div. That's how we get it in the box. And let's just take a quick look at this. Form open, we're posting to the create member method of the login page, and we have some form inputs here. This is the name of it, of course, and for the value we're using the set value method. Now the point of this is, if they're at the page for the first time, it's going to say it's going to have first name here for the value. But if they submitted the form and there was something wrong with it and it didn't validate, we're going to redirect them back to it. But rather than have them fill out everything again, we're going to remember what they put in the first time, and we're going to put it back there. So that's what this set value does. This first part, we get the name of it, and if they didn't validate, they get sent back to it, but we are going to put that back there for them. And we can test that. So if I put just my name here, and then I try to submit, okay, we get these error messages sent back, but you'll see I don't need to type my name again. That's remembered, and that's because of the set value function, Codeigniter set value function that we have right here. So we do a similar thing for last name and email, username, nothing special in these. With the password, the value is set to an empty string, and we have the placeholder again. And with the next form password is password confirm, name there, and the class is password confirm. Okay, this relates to the jQuery file we just looked at. And then it's submitting, and under that we put this echo validation errors, also from Codeigniter. So if there was any errors, that data is going to be sent here, and it's going to be echoed out inside a paragraph with a class of error. And there was, if you looked at the style sheet I had, there was some specific styling for that, for whatever paragraph has a class of error. So let's go over to where this gets posted to, which is the create member method, and that's right here. So the first thing we're doing is we're loading in the form validation library, and after that we're setting all of the rules. Okay, now I'm not going to go into detail about all of these rules, but if you go to Codeigniter's documentation, let's go to the top, table of contents, and then form validation class. If you scroll down to the bottom of this, you'll see all the different rules we have here, and you can use any of these rules that you want in there. Let's see what I did here. Some of them are pretty simple. First name, we first run the trim function on it, trim off any white space from the front or back, and that's required. There's another trim and required. With email, we are checking that it's a valid email. So Codeigniter is going to do its own regular expression testing on this email to make sure that's a valid email. And after that, I've created my own custom callback right here. So I want to do my own check, which is I want to check if this email exists or not already. So if it already exists, we're not going to let somebody register with that. So the way we do that is you create a function. The function name is check if email exists. Okay, but we have to prepend that here with callback underscore. Okay, so that lets Codeigniter know this is my own custom callback. And if we go down here, you'll see I created another public function with check if username exists and also check if email exists. And then we're passing that whatever, you know, this is the email basically. Okay, they're getting that from, you know, from the post data. The email is going here with username, the username is going there, and we're checking if it exists. Let's go back up here, and so my two custom callbacks. Remember, in my database, let's just go back to the database for a second, and let's go structure, and just for example, like my username, the database is only going to store 15 characters right here. So what we need to do is there's a max length right here. Okay, so example max length 12. So I'll copy this and I'll go into, okay, so right after min length, I'm pasting in there, I'm changing this to 15, and I'm putting a pipe character to the right of that. So all of these different rules are separated with the pipe character, and that it was as simple as that. And if somebody typed in 16 characters, it will, give them an error message back that the username, cannot be more than 15 characters. And that's how easy it is in Codeigniter to do that kind of validation. If we go down to the password confirm right here, well, one of the rules is it must match the password one. Okay, so pretty simple. Let's keep going down. So if all of these things check out, then this form validation run, this is going to evaluate to true. But if everything was okay, we're going to skip this and we're going to go down to this else block right here, and the first thing we're doing is we're loading in the membership model. So now we're going to start doing things with the database. So we need to load in the membership model, and let's open that. And let's go back for a second. After that, we're doing if query is set to this membership model create member. So we're basically, these go from right to left. So we're running the create member method of the membership model, and whatever is returned by this function is going to be stored inside query. Okay, so basically a true or false is going to be returned to this, and if this evaluates to true, then we're going to go down here. Your account has been created. So let's take a look at the create member method. Let's go over here and create member. So we're getting the username from the post array, storing in here, and now we're getting our data ready to insert into the database. So getting all this stuff from the posts and storing it in these elements in the array. With the password one, we're getting that, but we're running the MD5 function on it. That way we can store 32-bit hash in our database. And after that, we're doing the insertion here. So this db insert into the users table, and here we're passing in the array that needs to be inserted, and they're going to be, those are all going to get inserted. And if this was a successful write to the database, then this is going to return true to insert, and then we're going to return true for this function. So back here, query is going to be true. So if this is true, then we run this block, and what we do is we create a data variable. So account created, your account has been created, 2 breaks. You can log in, and then we load in these views. With the login form view, the second parameter, we pass it this data. Okay, and so we can we saw that earlier. So basically all this does is, rather than say login please, this gets put there. Okay, and if this evaluated to false, it wasn't able to insert into the database, then we're going back to the sign up form. But because we did all of our validation before this, it should be able to insert into the database. I want to talk a bit about the custom callback functions that we did, because I think that's pretty important. So Codeigniter's got a lot of its own validation, but sometimes you're going to have your own rules you want to set. So we saw here how to create these this custom validation. So the first thing that you'll do is you'll create these public functions inside the same controller. So these are both really similar, so let's just take a look at one of them. Check if username exists. So here's the requested username. So whatever was posted for the username, that's going right here. And I'm loading in the membership model, and then I'm running this. I created this method in the membership model, check if username exists, and we're sending that requested username. Sending that here. So let's take a look at that one. Check if username exists, and this is the active records in Codeigniter. I mean, you don't have to query the database like this, but basically Codeigniter has these simple ways to query the database. So first thing we're doing is it's just saying, well, what are you looking for? So the where part of the SQL statement. So where the username is set to username, okay? So, and then this just sets up the SQL statement, and down here we go. Here we're doing the get. So this is basically the select part. So we're selecting from the database where username is set to username, okay? And what this is going to do when you're doing get, it's going, or even if you just did, if you wrote it out yourself, you can also put query here and just write SQL in it. But basically what this get is going to do right here is it's going to return an object to result. So result is going to become an object. And if it found something, it's going to be, if it found something, or maybe if it didn't find something too, this is going to be an object. And in this object there's different properties in it. And one of the properties is the number of rows. Okay, so down here I say a result and then the arrow because it's an object, and then the number, actually it's a method in it. So num rows, if that's greater than 0, then we know that we found a username, right? So if this was more than 0, that means the username is already taken, and we're going to return false here, or else we're going to return true. Okay, so if this returns true, we go back to our login, and username available will be true. Okay, so if this is true, if it's available, then we return true. So this return true is being returned back up here. So when this returns true here, then if all of these return true, then this can return true, and then everything has been validated. Okay, but if this returned false, then a message would be sent back to them, on the registration form saying, that username already exists. Now I had to create that myself, and actually before I was doing something wrong about that. I'll show you where those messages are kept. So if you go down to let's see, in our system folder, okay, and inside language and then English, there is this form validation line. Now right now I've put 2 underscores here because I've made modifications to this. I've moved this into the application, which is language right here. And the reason I did that is because in the future you might want to update your Codeigniter, and in that case you'll be replacing the system folder. So any changes you made in the system folder are going to be lost. So what I did was I just put 2 underscores here. That kind of shows that it's been changed by one of the programmers, but it basically looks the same in both of them. It's the same file, and I copied that and I pasted it inside the language English one of the application. And let's take a look at it. So all of these ones up here come with Codeigniter. Okay, you can change those if you want to, but you can see I created 2 custom ones down here, which is check if username exists and check if email exists. You'll notice these match my function name, and then what is the value of them? Okay, sorry that username is already taken, sorry that email has already been registered. Okay, so if they made those errors and if this didn't validate, that would be sent back to the registration form, so they would know this username is already taken then they have to get another one. So remember, if you make changes to this, copy it and paste it inside the application one and make your changes in there. Then you can easily update your system folder in the future. The last thing that I want to talk about is our login controller. So, our login function. So we looked at this before. I believe we already looked at that. And our login form, so let's just quickly go over to that. And we see this is getting submitted to validate credentials. And so let's take a look at that. So here, the first thing we're doing is we're loading in the membership model, and we are going to run this validate function. So let's take a look at that. And where is it? Okay, validate. So again, I'm using the where. We're just sort of setting up our SQL statement. So where the username is set to username, and where the password is set to the password post, but we're running the MD5 function on it, so it's going to match with the hashed value in the database. And then we're doing our select here. So this get so select from the database, select all from database where username is set to username, and where the password is set to this hash password here, and we're getting that from the users table. Okay, and then this again is returning an object to this query variable here. Okay, and again, if you want to take, one thing I recommend you to do is, if you haven't done it before, run the print r. So it looks like this. Okay, print r. Oops. Run the print r function of PHP on this object, and you can see everything that's included in it. And one of them is the num rows. So if if the number of rows equals 1, if it exists in the database, then this returns true. Okay. So so if this is true, then this is true, obviously, and we're going to do this. So the first thing we're doing is we're creating a data array, and we're putting two elements in there. One is the username, and the next is logged in. So they've logged in now. So is logged in is going to be set to true, and we are going to store these inside their session. Okay, so you could store anything you want in the session, actually, as long as it's not too big to store in there. And I'm just going to show you where these are stored. So if I go over to the database, and we go to CI sessions, and we should log in first. So I'm just going to log in. Okay, so it's logged in, and let's just refresh here, and we can see where the session data is stored. So this S stands for string, and B for Boolean. So is logged in, set to Boolean of 1, that's set to true, and there is my username right there. Okay. So I think that's all that I want to talk about for this register and login system. Sorry it took so long, and thanks for listening.